Hey guys, so we've just seen the indices break down here. The largest company in the world, Microsoft, really dragging things here, weighing in on things. The next potential breakdown is NVDA here. It's been chopping in this wedge pattern. You are coming up into some minor support here, but 724 is the bigger intraday level. Basically, that does provide a few different little support zones where we could see a bounce, but overall, the Qs are still in a big uptrend today. So is the Russell 2000 up 2.5%, outperforming. The Russell really sniffing and taking advantage of the falling yields and the dollar. So that's really the only main reason why the indices are actually seeing some great deal of strength. We did have weak economic data this morning across the board. Still, the labor market remains strong. So right now, things are continuously showing a great deal of strength across the semiconductors. You do have some weakness in Google today, gapping down, certainly hitting cloud stocks. You have weakness in Microsoft, also falling into that cloud picture. Tesla's strong today. Amazon is negative today. Apple's also negative. So you have the majority of the mega caps negative. The outperformer today is Meta. Meta is outperforming along with SMCI up another, 12.5%, just screaming higher. We're going to have to probably make a new RSI indicator for SMCI as it starts to really go parabolic here. But right now, there is weakness in the market, but there's also strength. All sectors are green across the board, so you're seeing the breadth in the market pick up today. The only sector that isn't green is XLK technology, the largest sector, or the largest weighted sector in the indices, because of the fact that Microsoft, Google, Apple, and NVIDIA are all lagging things here. NVIDIA was down quite substantially more. Basically, you can see that it did have a push all the way down to the 724. You really haven't been able to bounce and recapture all of the losses, but you did recapture most of them, and now you're potentially just putting in lower highs and really testing this little wedge pattern breakout here, or breakdown here. On that note, let's just take a look at Microsoft since it is the largest. We'll just keep that on watch because that one is potentially showing us lower highs and lower lows. So you just made a little bit of a lower low. That's typically short-term bearish. Now, could you bounce and retest this 405.60? Sure thing, but it's looking likely you want to test at least this double bottom, triple bottom zone at 404.32 on Microsoft. If you break through that, you do have your big hourly upsloping trend line. So Microsoft is actually still forming this head and shoulders. It's very sloppy, but if this breaks down, it's roughly a 4% potential decline from this neckline. So pay close attention to that on the hourly chart. Again, as of now, you have the yields weak, dollar weak. The VIX is up today. So that's a little bit interesting. You know, even with all indices green across the board, you still have this UVXY really trying to maintain and catch a bid. So, I mean, if you look at the trend line that UVXY is trading into, you can see we did have that breakout, no confirmation, but it is still seeing a little bit of buying today across the board, and it's interesting to see that that is catching a bid despite the indices green. Again, small caps right now are just an absolute force. You can see that that huge gap down has completely been erased and recaptured, so that CPI reaction pretty much in small cap market has been negated, and this one is trying to break out of its little bit of a basing range. The trend line that I'm watching here on the small cap chart is really what we're coming up into now. So we are coming up into this downsloping trend line. That's, I think, the levels that the bulls need to get through. Definitely getting overbought intraday on the Russell. You can see you had many 10 consecutive candles in a row. It is looking strong though. Let's keep an eye on Microsoft. Big wick back up on Microsoft. If Microsoft recaptures the zone, you can push back up to about 406.80. But it is negative on the session, and it is making lower highs and lower lows. So just be cautious about that. We did have Naresh put in here Octa heading to 93. Let me pull up the Octa chart. Bless me, sorry. About the sneeze there. All right, Okta daily chart. So small cap semiconductor. Okta daily chart, yeah, above all the key moving average, nice consolidation. You're at the high of the range. It is attempting a potential breakout here on Okta. Really, I mean, once you clear this, if you clear this big resistance, does Okta have earnings? Of course, Okta have earnings. It's always one of those stocks that looks very strong heading into earnings. And then you could see maybe a little bit of a, I think you can potentially buy the dip off of this name if we retest support, but it is looking strong for a breakout. And if this does break out past this 92, I mean, you really don't have any resistance until you get to about 110. So that's potentially, yeah, a nice little risk to reward ratio on the long side. Again, it's risky ahead of earnings coming up, but it does look like it's poised to at least probably trend into earnings to the upside. I don't know how much upside we're going to get over the next, say, week into earnings, but it does look like it wants to push higher here on the chart. Domino's Pizza, DPZ. So DPZ, we did chart this one before. You can see weekly chart, clear technical breakout. That's very, very bullish. I think as long as you maintain structure in this zone, you do have a very strong chance of moving higher. Daily chart, very choppy and sloppy, but you can see maybe you're forming a little bit of a inverse head and shoulders here. Hasn't triggered the neckline, but once you do, you have at least a small little upside pattern move here, about a 4 or 5% potential move to the upside. And since you are consolidating in a bigger breakout pattern, this could likely move higher. It is looking like a stronger chart for sure. Definitely. One could argue you have this little very weird inverse head and shoulders pattern on the weekly. That basically distance from your neckline. It's about a 47% rally. You know, you put that up there, you're talking about potentially new highs testing that double top. So yeah, this one's keep it on your radar. Keep it on your radar. Has it had earnings yet? Oh, earnings is still coming up. Earnings is still coming up. All right, let's look back to Microsoft here. All right, so at the moment, Tesla is very strong. Meta is very strong out of the mega caps. Google's weak. It's actually curling down. Amazon's curling down. Bitcoin's curling down. Microsoft's trying to curl back up. Apple's curling down. NVDA right now is just mixed, trading at support, but it is starting to potentially lose some key moving averages on a short-term basis. The dollar has trended down now for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15-minute candles consecutively. 12, 15 consecutive minute candles down on the dollar. Coinbase earnings release. Let's take a look at Coin. You know, Coin's interesting because it's had a huge reversal from the high today, and when you look at its counterparty, Mara has actually gone negative big reversal candle down. Now, this is on the back of also Bitcoin being strong from the high of roughly, what was it? What did it hit a high of? Roughly 50, almost 53,000, 52.8, give or take a couple dollars. But now it's pulled back and gone negative. So you've really seen crypto stocks break down. Right now, I mean, the risk to reward in coin, if you look at it on the daily chart, it's had a really stellar move up. And the positives is Bitcoin still above 51,000. So I think, if you really look at where Bitcoin was trading during this October phase, if we go back to, say, October, what is that? October, November, end of October, November, Bitcoin was roughly trading at, let's just pull this up on the chart. Just scrolling back here. I mean, end of October, Bitcoin was at around 34,000. So you factor in, is the move justified right now? And it kind of makes a justified move here on Coinbase with where Bitcoin's trading. Bitcoin really at the last earnings report was around 34,000. Now it's 51,000. So you have to anticipate that the earnings report is likely going to be good for Coinbase because Bitcoin hasn't really seen a sell-off. It's seen continued momentum, continued buying. But then at the same time, is this the potential top in Bitcoin before we see a small pullback? It's had a stellar move. So is Coinbase. It's a tough one. I really don't have expectations, but I would give it the benefit of the doubt to the high side since it's in an uptrend. And since Bitcoin's in an uptrend, I would give it the benefit of the doubt. There's always a potential. I've seen this on like some of the semiconductor plays where they sell it off into earnings, boom, 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 and then they just gap it up, basically trapping in all that liquidity. Because there's shorts that are shorting this down today. You've basically had a 4-hour consecutive short on coin here. Sorry, my cat is just going crazy right now. My cat is going crazy. She just keeps destroying this tree of mine. We've got these palm trees in our house, and oh my goodness, we have a little kitten that just loves to climb them. So I'm always running back and forth trying to snap my fingers to get her out. Cat ranch. All right, so Coinbase again suffers. Hopefully that helped. I'd give it the benefit of the doubt. It's super risky though, but I'd give it the benefit of the doubt. I think it's safe to say if coin dipped, into this gap fill, this previous little 139 here, that's a safe spot to buy. I wouldn't short it yet. Maybe you can inch in on the short side at double top, but there's a strong chance that, with the amount of liquidity that's flowing in the market recently and things squeezing, you could definitely see it push up after earnings. Microsoft got a nice big bounce, still stuck at technical resistance. Tried breaking out of this little inverse, and it's almost failed. Now you're retesting it and trying to hold above. That's it. Lost your privileges. All right, guys, I'm just going to short Microsoft here, 405.41. Just going to risk this high pivot here. 405.41, tight stop loss. 405.41. Basically seeing if we can catch a little trade. Stop loss is going to be at this 405.73. So very tight stop loss. Just trying to catch a little bit of a potential downward shift here. So risking about 32 cents, should probably see about maybe a 90-cent drop. And of course, indices are trying to push up here. This is the 30-second chart right now. It is trying to break out of this little may get stopped out here on Microsoft. Still holding. I'm giving it a 30-second close above our stop loss. I'm still holding it. But Microsoft is trying to push up here a little bit. Seeing Apple curling down again. All right, guys. I think I'm going to close this trade here. Just trying to see this little, how the SPY closes and Qs close. I'm still holding it. Still only a 1/4 position short. I'm even tempted to add a little bit here. Just want to see how NVDA and Tesla react here. All right, guys, I just added here at 405.72. 405.72. I just added to the position. So that brings the average up to 405.59. 405.59. All right, so a little bit of an attempt at breaking out here. So still holding a 2/4 position short here on MSFT. It is trying to still break out of this little bit of a pattern intraday. We are seeing the S&P grinding higher here, well above its gap fill. Dollar's still coming down. Qs are above the 7-day moving average, so above the short-term 7 and the 3. That's a positive sign. Qs are getting a big push here through Microsoft. SMCI is a monster. Yes, it is. That low float, almost hitting $1,000 here. It's definitely a monster. Guess that's seems partially manipulated at this point. You know, with the low float, squeezing. That's all it is right now. It's a big squeeze, short squeeze. Anyone that can't hold on to their shares, if they're shorting it, if you're over levered, it's sniffing that out. You know, it's going to get anyone who's over levered and can't hold on to, if you're shorting SMCI, I personally am. If you can't hold on to your shares, that's what's happening, is the people who are over levered are getting squeezed out of their stocks. You know, it sucks going through a short squeeze, but it's a learning lesson, and it's always something to learn with the stock market. It's a prime example of why position management is key in this business, because sometimes you're going to be a part of the squeeze, sometimes you're going to be against the squeeze. And if you're against it in this environment, it's going to teach you a lesson to lower your risk, lower your positions. And that's exactly what's happening. Probably a lot of people started shorting this, you know, even into the 800s, 850s, 900s. Now look, we're at 1,000. So it's definitely squeezing. It's pretty insane price action. You know, what's the RSI on it? I have it on one of my other charts here. Intraday, I mean, the RSI has just been overbought, like for crazy intraday. But the daily RSI, 96.73. The weekly is at 92.47. Miraculous. Absolutely insane. How about Tesla? Did you start your stream late today because I was looking for you? Yeah, I did start my stream late, you know, post Valentine's Day hangover, I guess you would say. And I had a couple other showings to do. So, I mean, not crazy. I was a little bit busy. All right, guys, I'm going to add to this Microsoft 3/4 position, basically looking at adding into this zone here, somewhere between these two pivots, in between this 406 and 406.26. Bitcoin's flipped back to the positive side. NVIDIA is still down 0.9, Microsoft 0.8, AMD 0.4, Apple 1.24. VIX is still green, gold's up 0.6, silver's up 2.5. Yields across all time frames are down. Small caps whopping up 2.7%. Natural gas, another day where natural gas is getting punched down. Except what's interesting is you have oil positive. Oil's up 0.44, and nat gas is actually negative. Oil's ripping up 1.87% today again. Seems like oil just wants to charge higher. Honestly, I'm not. I'm just gonna let it ride. I don't. It's a small enough position in my portfolio. This is the type of thing that I've been through this before, where I've seen these squeezes take place, and once the squeeze is over, it's gonna come crashing down like 40 probably percent or so. So I'm not really a matter. I'm not concerned about my stop loss on SMCI. I'm kind of just letting it run. It's a small enough position in my portfolio that it doesn't really affect me that much, and I still have maneuverability room to add. I mean, I'm comfortable taking this upwards of 5%. I think right now it's only about a 2-3% of my portfolio. So it's nothing that I'm concerned about. That's the thing, right? There's probably a lot more people that have stuck in this with much, much larger size positions. And, if you hear me discussing it, there's really no concern in my voice. It is what it is. And because I'm using position management, this thing can basically go up another 100% on me, and I'd still be okay. So I'm just letting it ride. Again, SMCI, like, if you want to cover your shares because it's too big, like, you know, that's totally your call. Let me just erase some of these. But look at this. I mean, is that normal? An RSI of 96.74, not really that normal. At the minimum, this thing, if you just did from this breakout zone here, if you just do a 50% retrace, that's back to 645. That's probably what's going to happen. You do a 618, you're back to 560. Could this go to 1200? Sure, it could in a short squeeze. But this should correct probably about 35-40%, pretty hard. Maybe they're just waiting on NVIDIA earnings. But in my opinion, fundamental technical picture, like I've seen these moves happen in these lower volume float stocks. And at the end of the day, they can keep squeezing up another 10, 20, 30%. But that's where you have to understand your position management rules. Exactly, Georgiana. It was not normal anytime 800. But there's going to be bulls out there that tell you, what, it is normal. This thing's going to go to 2,000. I've been hearing 2,000 calls. It's insane. It's quite insane. But that's just the way. Semis are hot. Semis are the next phase in the market, or they've been the phase in the market. I shouldn't say next phase. They have been the phase. Just like EVs were in 2021, semis are, cloud stocks went through their whole regime. So it's a big form of rotation, right? In and out of these names. In and out, in and out. I wonder what the weighting of SMCI is now. It must be getting very bloated in the SMH or the SOXX. Let's take a look. SOX Holdings. iShares Semiconductor ETF. Let's see. So, number of holdings still 30. Let's look at the holdings. NVIDIA is still number one. It's about a 10.2% weighting. ASML. Oh, maybe it's in the SMH that I saw it in Taiwan. It's actually not in the SOX. SOXX. Wow. I definitely thought it was in the SOX. Maybe I stand corrected. Intel. Maybe it's in the SMH. SMH holdings. I thought it was in one of the holdings. Oh, SMCI is not even in the whole SMH or the SOX. Stand corrected. Wow, look at the that's crazy. The SMH and SOX are weighted so differently. The SMH has a weighting of, or sorry, NVIDIA and the SMH has a weighting of 24.93%. And in the SOX, it's only 10.2%. So the SMH is way, way heavier skewed. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy to see some of the breakdowns of these weightings. US dollar. So, and the second top holding is Taiwan Semi in the SMH 9.7, AVGO 5.98, AMD 5.77, ASML 5.13. So big list, big difference between the SMH and the SOX. SOX is more balanced structurally, so you're probably more hedged because NVIDIA is only 10% weighting versus 20%. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I'll take a look at Tesla for you in the chat there. RAM 11111111. Let's take a peek at Tesla. So Tesla's been a powerhouse today. Hourly chart, you can see a clear technical breakout of this inverse head and shoulders. 4-hour chart, you're looking to confirm on this candle. Daily chart, breakout, clear as day. Looks like you want to attack the gap fill. This one's just been strong with the market. Basically, you've seen a nice accumulation pattern off of this inverse head and shoulders. Daily chart inverse head and shoulders hasn't broken out, but considering you're starting to break out on the smaller turn time frames, and now the 4-hour chart, you're looking for a confirmed candle. You get a confirmed candle in the 4-hour chart, it looks very likely you'll head to this gap fill at the minimum. And then if you get a daily breakout, then you're probably retesting this EMA 113, which is down sloping, so it'll be somewhere in this neckline retrace. This is your bearish pattern that you triggered on Tesla. You are at technical support vis-a-vis this channel, so there is a strong chance you could retrace all the way up to here. I still have it priced in that we likely will test 130, 140 at some point in time. But as of now, Tesla's moving up. Seems the selling has abated, and we could look for some higher price action to come. It is very, very strong today. Hopefully that helped, Ram Ram. SPY just made a new high of day, trading at 501. can see NVIDIA is testing this EMA 113. We've been really consolidating on it for the last couple hours here on the 5-minute chart, but you are putting in lower highs off of NVIDIA, and you're seeing these trend lines broke. You broke this one over here, and you've been chopping sideways lower highs. You're now testing a breakout on this one, breakdown on this one. So, you know, it looks like they are still under a lot of pressure. Some of these semiconductor plays, you still have some strength through some individual ones, but, you know, with NVIDIA breaking down here, if it breaks down even more, I mean, we should come back down to test this 724 and then potentially even 715. There's a bigger support zone down around 715. So right now it's holding support. We'd give it the benefit of the doubt, but we have been potentially trying to break down here. Just going to remove some of these previous lines from where we were trading it. Still holding Microsoft on the short side. Look at the Qs. Qs are starting to just sell off just a tad. Bigger breakdown coming through now. So Microsoft selling off, Apple pushing up, Google curling down, Meta curling up, Amazon curling up, NVIDIA curling down. Ultimately, simply just Microsoft and NVIDIA, if they're curling down, it really takes a lot. You know, you're talking about company number 1 and 3 weighing in on the indices. Potential little distribution pattern on the Russell 2000. The Russell has been strong all day, and really it's now coming down to potentially test a head and shoulders on the 1-minute chart. So it hasn't really triggered any sort of bearish pattern all day. This would be the first one if it breaks down. And I mean, we're just talking about a mini breakdown here, intraday, 1-minute chart. You know, that would put us basically back down to 203.76 if we'd lose this critical neckline zone. So that's, you know, the first real weakness I've seen in the Russell 2000 since it's been a solid uptrend all day. Big bounce coming in Microsoft right now. NVIDIA is still seeing some sell side pressure off of that EMA 113. Alright guys, I just added to my Microsoft short there, 406.22. 406.22. We are seeing this one push up. My average is now sitting at 405.89. Russell's breaking down a little bit. Qs are seeing some small weakness, but Microsoft is just pumping through here. Microsoft is pumping through into the last hour here. It seems as if it wants to do a power hour rally. And then final add is going to be at this 406.57 area, if need be. All right, Qs and SPYs are seeing some distribution now. More weakness creeping into NVDA. Scroll through some of these mega caps. Meta curling down. Microsoft's the only one that's trying to push up now against the trend. Actually, Apple's also trying to push up here. Nice big push in Apple. So interesting to see that the Qs really aren't pushing up here when Apple and Microsoft are pushing up. So more selling commencing into the Qs, more selling coming into SPY. The Russell completed its little measured move breakdown. NVIDIA also seeing a little bit of weakness here in the power hour session. I think what I'm looking for is if NVIDIA breaks this pivot, that's going to be a nice breakdown. You know, NVIDIA is the king of having these sharp reversals, so you have to watch it accordingly. But you do have this potential little rounding formation on NVIDIA occurring. head and shoulders on the 5-minute. And again, you have broken the neckline here. So that downside target could come into fruition. Roughly a downside move 3.5% from, say, the neckline, which is here. That takes us to a target of roughly 705.17. Not going to play out today. That would be pretty wild, but maybe weakness into tomorrow. And we might be into the phase here with NVIDIA where, since its earnings is approaching, it really doesn't, in my opinion, have much more upside priced in unless it comes out with like a $30 billion guide from 20 billion estimate. So the upside is likely priced in. So right now we're probably just seeing it in a distributive phase until you actually have its earnings reports. So I'm expecting people to take profits here heading into earnings. The run up it's had on the daily chart, it's probably prudent and wise if you're an investor to take profits ahead of earnings, because you never know, it could gap down, it could gap up, but risk to reward certainly favors lower price action at this point in time. So you may see that distribution, you may see a little bit more sell side pressure over the next couple days in this name. It is down 1.37% today, which really on the hourly chart doesn't look like much to begin with, since it started pretty much near the highs. But only natural to start underperforming ahead of earnings. It is a riskier event to hold into, so there's likely some profit taking ahead of that. Microsoft trying to push up some more, keeping the S&P and Qs buoyant. Microsoft still down 0.78%, but it is trying to recapture a lot of those losses. Apple's still charging higher. Bitcoin's still trading around the 51,900 level. Hasn't really pushed up above 52,000 since it had that blow off top early in the morning. So we're still holding short Microsoft, slightly down on the trade. SMCI, AMD, NVDA, semis are starting to weaken just a little bit. Bitcoin also seeing some heavier selling creeping into the picture here. All right, so more sell side pressure coming into the Qs. It's really being seen across the semiconductor space. If you look at NVIDIA, that's coming down off the highs. You look at AMD, that's coming in. Even SMCI is slowly falling just a little bit. Looking at the SOX across the whole board, the SOXX is starting to come in here as well. Potentially a lower high in place on the SOX. We'll have to watch that closely. SMH, the one that's skewed a little bit more compared to the Qs. Let's look at the Russell. The Russell did have that minor breakdown. Now it's retraced to that neckline. You can see it's getting rejected again, just ever so slightly. Qs are losing the EMA 113 here. We'll have some support here. Big bounce in SMCI. Big bounce in Microsoft coming again. Qs are trying to gain a little bit of footing here off that initial sell-off. Still 40 minutes left in the session here. You have seen the SOXS flip back to the green side slightly, so the SOX and SMH are kind of fighting between positive to negative, despite the Qs being up 0.2%. Qs have definitely pulled in from the highs here. We'll see if the Qs turn negative into the close here. All right, a bigger breakdown in the Qs. We're selling in Microsoft. Meta's curling down now. Amazon's curling down. Ten-minute chart support on the Qs is sitting at about 432.46. So still a decent drop that could commence. Even if you drop down to 432.46, you're still putting in higher lows. Nice sell side pressure coming into Microsoft here. Buying SMCI here, I mean, by all means, go for it. That's not what I'm doing. I can't make any recommendations, but if you want to chase a stock, if people are buying SMCI up here, honestly, I don't even really think too many people are buying. I think it's just a short squeeze, low float. You're just not really getting much sell side pressure yet. But I think this is just squeezing. But if you want to chase it up here, just from this gap up, SMCI is up 213%. Off of a reported 3.66 billion in revenue. All right, I don't even know what this company is trading at metric wise. Let's see its PE. PE is getting 77, so but the RSI, the daily chart, it's crazy strength in the name, but I can't chase it up here. Roku and Trade Desk reporting earnings tonight. Thanks, Nurish. Let's take a look. Roku. Daily chart. Yeah, I mean, so the positive is that this impulse green weekly candle, all the consolidation's pretty much been above that. So that's still holding a lot of those bullish buyers. Just gonna remove some of these day trade lines. You back tested there, you've bounced. That's a positive sign. You've tapped the EMA 113 on the weekly chart once. You're coming up to test it again. It is trying to break out there. Let's see here. Bounce. Yeah, I mean, you do have this little bullish intraday breakout pattern here, which suggests a little bit more upside in the near term. But again, earnings is risky, right? Earnings is risky. All these earnings plays, it's truly a gamble. We don't know how the stock is going to react. We can give our best guess, based off of the current technical picture, but it's a fundamental event that, no one has the crystal ball unless there's some insider information, but no one truly knows how a stock is going to react going into earnings. That's why there's always a risk. It could go up, it could go down. I personally don't like to play it either ways unless I'm got a longer term fundamental driver and thesis in place. But communication stocks, across the board, Disney gapped up, Meta gapped up. I did see Fubo gapped down. That one had a tremendous amount of weakness. Snapchat gapped down. So, I mean, it's kind of been mixed across some of the communications. This is a streaming platform. So when you look at the streaming names, Netflix strong. Obviously, Disney was strong. So it may have a little bit of a fundamental bullish side thesis to it. Roku. Let's look at Trade Desk, TTD. Yeah, not a bad chart either. It's trying to curl up and break out. You've put in a nice consolidation pattern here. Let me just erase that fib zone. Lower highs, but higher lows. So you're just creating a wedge pattern. It's probably going to be a big break. It's going to be a big move, this stock, one way or another, because it's been consolidating since July for several months now. So this is going to make a big move. This does look more bullish, this pattern. This pattern does look like a nice weekly flag pattern that is trying an attempt at a breakout here. If you want to use it from the exact pivot high, you can see you're right at resistance, but it is looking nice. You can see if it retested this channel, call it 51, 57, that's where you'll have support. But if it breaks out of this flag pattern, I mean, you could, just a basic measured move calculation is a pretty big move on this stock. It's got a nice consolidation. It's not a bad looking chart. That's pretty solid in my opinion. I would favor upside, but again, I don't really play earnings on that nature. I only play the reaction. If a stock jumps too much, I short it. If it drops too much, I buy it. So I like to play the reaction. But this flag pattern upside can take you back to all-time highs there. So it is looking definitely more stronger. I would lean bullish on both names, but again, no position, and that's not any advice. Narish is obviously leaning bullish. There his finds. Tesla 206 tomorrow. Yeah, it's a possibility. I mean, we've got to wait for that daily chart confirmation breakout. You've got it on the 1 hour chart. You've had it on the 2 hour chart. I don't know if you have it on the 4 hour chart yet. Let's see. You probably do, actually. So, I mean, the 206 target is a clear inverse head and shoulders pattern breakout. Yeah, right now there's 29 minutes left in the 4 hour candle, and you'll confirm the 4 hour chart breakout. So it's looking very likely. Cannot believe you're in terms of me. Hope you're okay. Must be all the Valentine's chocolates I've been eating. They've made me go crazy. So you can see the Qs just retracing to the little neckline zone. Tesla's still surging here into the close. Meta's curling down. Meta's losing momentum. That might hurt the communication stocks going into things. You've now seen the SOXX just turn flat on the session. So across the board, you are seeing weakness in some semiconductors. The SOXS semiconductor bear ETF trying to flip slightly green here. It's actually had a pretty wild move. The high was all the way at 437, low has been all the way at 418, and now it's just flat on the intraday session. AVGO, another semiconductor weakening here. So maybe we're going to see some capital rotate out of some of these semis, except for SMCI. That's in a world of its own. That's even outpacing NVIDIA's gains. Just shocking. You know, they were kind of trading in lockstep, but even NVIDIA hasn't gone as parabolic as SMCI. But regardless, you might be seeing a rotation trade out of some individual semiconductor names into, say, like Tesla, Amazon. Maybe we'll catch another continuation bit to the high side. Amazon's daily chart still looking technically okay. Just been putting in some consolidation in the mid-range of its gap up, earnings gap up. All right, guys, I just added to Microsoft there. 406.57, it tapped that zone. Brings our average up to 406.16. A little bit late in the session. I don't really like this short trade as much anymore. It's super, super late, but can still get a little bit of a dump into the close. Microsoft is still negative on the session. It has been seeing selling across the board in the cloud space. So if the Qs start to break down, it could still see some sell side pressure. Tesla still pushing, NVIDIA consolidating, a little bit of a bearish range. Amazon's kind of curling down. Apple's trying to curl up. Meta's curling down. Google's curling up. XOM crazy ramp up. Yeah, oil's strong, right? XOM has had a nice move. It's been putting in a flag pattern on the daily chart. So again, I think another trade. Oh, XOM had a sell-off there, but it's still strong on the daily chart, putting in this nice flag pattern. I'm holding a bunch of 105 calls. This is a trade that I've executed for some other client portfolios, but it's been strong, super strong, and this pattern looks healthy. You get a breakout, I mean, and just look at oil. I mean, oil's also been a beast, right? So oil's also putting in another rounding formation here. Looks as if you want to break out of this neckline. Once you break out of this little neckline, I mean, it's pretty strong price action in oil. Very, very strong. Let's see where you are on the daily 200. Yep, you're right now. As of today, the daily 200 sitting at 77.34. You're at 77.62. That's a nice close. That could be a nice positive close above the daily 200 MA. And that should put pressure. Again, if oil continues to move up here, it's going to put pressure on this market. Still seeing Microsoft with a potential head and shoulders on the hourly chart. Still hasn't triggered the neckline yet. You have the VIX went negative. Dollars down also 0.41%. Yields are down. Crypto stocks getting hit hard. Coin up though, Mara down. I don't know why there's such a big divergence today between Coin and Mara. Maybe there was a shelf offering for Mara that I haven't heard about. Does anybody know? Anybody in the chat know why there's such a big divergence between Coin and Mara? You know, Coin's still up about 3.59%. Mara's down 7.96%. Big divergence. There you go, guys. SMCI just hit $1,000, $1,005 a share. Crazy. Absolute pandemonium. So the race to 1,000 between NVIDIA and SMCI was absolutely, you know, considering they were going pound for pound, you know, $100 gain, $100 gain each stock. You know, NVIDIA's at 727, 728. SMCI is now over 1,000. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. All right, so we are seeing NVIDIA and semis coming in a little bit more now. SOXS just flipped slightly green on the session. Maybe the Qs go negative by the close. That would be a little bit of a bearish signal, but you have seen the bear ETF on the SOX basically just flip slightly green. Let's see if that pushes more weakness into the Qs. Microsoft still remaining strong here. Potential. Seeing some small divergences in some leading stocks today. For instance, just give me a second. I just want to confirm a few things here. Like AVGO's been a leader. That one's closing below the daily 7 moving average today. So that could be a bearish little breakdown. You are seeing more heavy sell side pressure coming into NVIDIA here, guys. So that NVIDIA chart is looking vulnerable into the close here. Again, we have triggered 5-minute head and shoulders formation. Downside is 705. Don't think we'll hit that today. Not a strong chance of hitting that today. But there's still a chance, of lower price action to come in the next few days. This is the theory supports some profit taking ahead of earnings. Last 10 minutes here into the close. You have Roku, Trade Desk, TTD on watch for earnings. More sell side pressure. Let's flip to the Qs because Qs are trying to hold this little wedge pattern. Big push on Microsoft there. So Microsoft's really firmed up as the Qs have started to wane. Basically back into this little resistance trend line. Qs are getting a big push. Seeing NVIDIA bounce, Amazon bouncing, Apple curling up. Really big surge here on Microsoft. Qs are getting a nice push as well. Semiconductors are back positive on the session. XLK is still weak, still negative. All right, I'm just going to start my members video here. Whoa, what a dip there on Microsoft. What a rejection point. All right, guys, late in the session, I just covered my short at 405.94 just because it's late in the session, 405.94. Just covered my short on Microsoft for a small gain, but did you see that dip on Microsoft there? Holy, that was a huge drop. So what was going against us pretty much throughout this late afternoon session, it dipped right in below our level there. Just covered it for a small gain. That one was going against us, but it just shows you how fast things can drop here into the close. Still 5 minutes left. That's not really what you want to see. What's interesting, there might be a bit of a rebalancing going on here because you've seen Apple make the inverse move to the high side and Microsoft make the move to the low side here. So that was so weird. That's why they ran it up into the close on us. I was thinking that's kind of odd. But they pumped the liquidity out of Microsoft and they reversed it into Apple. But now Apple's also seeing a little bit of weakness. But take a look at these inverse moves. All right, pretty much opposite moves. Apple's now pushing. Microsoft did not like that. Crazy price action. Really crazy price action. Yeah, Apple suffers. Did you see that? So they basically took the liquidity out of Microsoft and they put it into Apple because really the Qs are still moving up here, but that was a clear rotation out of Microsoft into Apple. So I mean that might signify something, that might signify that okay, maybe Microsoft's a short and Apple's a long. Maybe there's a pairs trade to be played here. Apple is at more support than Microsoft. It's hanging on the neckline here. So technically you can buy support, but look for that in the next couple sessions, guys. Look for maybe a pairs trade to be played where we can short Microsoft, long Apple. Maybe Apple wants to make a comeback here. I mean, Apple's been so weak in comparison, but that could be a signal. This little price action could be a signal. I mean, when you look at things too, it's not like NVDA caught any of that rotation. QQQ obviously is still holding here, but it was really only Apple and Microsoft where that crazy move happened. So those are small little nuances that we can observe intraday that might give us a pairs trade opportunity. And I don't mind that, long Apple, short Microsoft. That's certainly, the charts on the hourly chart are looking completely different here. Sure, there's a potential head and shoulders on Apple, but it hasn't triggered it yet. But really big bounce. Now you can see Microsoft's pushing up as well. Really fascinating price action there. But that just shows you how fast, like, liquidity out of this is a $3 trillion company, how fast it can just be sucked out and then pumped into something else, right? You can see Apple's getting a really big surge here into the close. Massive surge on Apple. Apple just turned positive on the session. Wow. Massive, massive move up there. Pretty impressive. All right, guys, I'm going to end the stream here. 3:57. Nothing really to report. Members, if you're in listening, I'll try to get out my video. I'm going to work on it right now. So stay tuned within the next hour or two for the daily analysis. So thank you all for tuning in. Thanks on the Microsoft trade there. What's your position on Microsoft? I thought you stop loss already. No, I decided to hold it an ad. I'd never said I truly stopped out. I would have commented on that. I said I'm just going to hold it. And then we got a little bit of a dip to basically take us slightly green, covered on that dip. So I never ever closed Microsoft. I did have it set. I would keep a tight stop loss on it, but I just wasn't believing the price action. And it turned out, we had a big dip there into the close due to some potential rebalancing or something. But on that note, thank you all for tuning in, and see you tomorrow on the live stream. Take care, everybody. Good luck on your earnings plays there. Naresh, if you're playing Roku, and Trade Desk, I'm sure they'll be interesting. They're going to make big moves either way. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you on the charts a bit later.